CTV News begins an in-depth look into something many people don't even realize is happening in their own communities. It's an often hidden crime that targets primarily teens and young adults right across our province. But victims' voices are rarely heard, their stories seldom told. CTV's Michelle Bernaro spent months investigating human trafficking, a project made possible with funding provided by the Lieutenant Governor's BC Journalism Fellowship in partnership with Government House Foundation and the Jack Webster Foundation. Here now is part one of Hidden in Plain Sight, Human Trafficking and the BC Connection.
From our cities to the suburbs, into the northern stretches of our province.
Really is a very heinous crime.
And in fact, right across the country.
It's growing exponentially.
There is an evil shrouded in the dark shadows of society that even experts say no one truly knows the scope of.
I think what we're seeing in the communities that we're in is just the tip of the iceberg.
It's a huge problem, and it's in every community, and people just don't know.
Sex trafficking, say those who work with victims, is a growing crisis in BC.
I would say in the past year, we've engaged on at least 50 trafficking cases involving teenage girls.
Some of the victims are as young as 11, children abused and left traumatized.
The girls that we're talking about have experienced unspeakable violence at the hands of their traffickers and the people who are exploiting them.
Those that perpetrate this crime, it is about money and power and control.
Traffickers are sometimes relatives, sometimes gangsters, always master manipulators, like the man who trafficked this young survivor who has Indigenous heritage. We are only identifying her as Jade.
Looking back, I would definitely call it manipulative.
Just 15 at the time, she says she was in ministry care but living on the streets.
I just freak out. Sometimes it's like flashbacks where I'm back in those moments, in those disgusting situations.
Her trafficker was a man 7 years her senior. She thought he was her boyfriend and protector, but instead he sold her at homeless encampments, often in the Fraser Valley, trading her for drugs or a place to sleep at night. When there was cash involved, he always kept it.
It never went to me. I never saw a penny of it afterwards.
Now clean and sober and living in northern BC, she wonders why more isn't being done to protect girls like herself.
We learn about gangs in school. Why can't we learn about human trafficking?
Jade's age and circumstances made her one of those most often targeted by traffickers.
Children in care are by far the most vulnerable and disproportionate population of children who are trafficked for a variety of reasons. I think it goes without saying that the state is a terrible guardian for children who are in care.
When it comes to trafficking, we know some victims come here from overseas, but by far the vast majority are Canadian-born. The average annual profit to a trafficker from a single victim, $280,000.
What we generally see are women moving from place to place with the offender and hitting different locations on a cross-country tour.
They certainly can be moved across the country, but we've actually had quite a number of cases where the victims have continued to live at home. These are young victims.
According to Stats Canada, about a quarter of police reported human trafficking cases nationwide involve children, but Brown says many trafficking cases go unreported.
There's not a single survivor that I know that is going to come forward in the current context because they don't trust that anybody's going to keep them safe, and I do not blame them.
And that, she says, has got to change so victims like Jade can find justice.
And Michelle joins us now. And Michelle, I appreciate how you clarified that human trafficking isn't just about moving people from one location to another. It's really about the coercion and the exploitation. So what made you want to do this investigation?
Yeah, you know, mi-jung, I've been reporting for decades, and I've often been moved by the stories of vulnerable children and now how they can be prone to abuse and exploitation. So honestly, this is something that's been weighing heavily on my heart for a very long time. I really wanted to dig deeper into this very complex, very disturbing issue. It was an eye-opener for me as I researched this over many months. I don't think that I really realized just how prevalent this crime is.
Yeah, definitely troubling. And I know you have worked so hard on this series. So, Michelle, what's coming up tomorrow?
Yeah, so tomorrow we hear the frightening story from a Victoria area mom whose teenage daughter was trafficked, and we tell you how she was finally found. Mi-jung?
All right, we're going to look forward to that. Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, Mi-jung.